What's up, y'all? I'm Dean Valentini, and I'm pumped to be joining you guys on the Invest in Denver podcast. I'm a local real estate investor, engineer, real estate agent, dog dad, crypto nerd, outdoorsman. Okay, so I may have a few too many hobbies, but for all you epic passers out there, my favorite ski run on the Front Range so far is definitely Wanderlust at Breck.
An epic passer. Okay. So there's a difference between an epic pass versus an icon pass, right? What's the big difference between the two?
Yeah, just the mountains you can go to. I think most of the locals are a little, I won't say snooty because I'll probably offend some people, but they prefer Icon from what I've noticed. So
I had no idea. And I'll be honest with you, even though I've been here for almost 2 years, actually 2 years to the date, almost exactly, I still have not gotten an epic or an icon pass. So
are you a big skier or snowboarder?
I love snowboarding.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. The thing is that I just need people to invite me. Dean.
This is your invitation. Consider this your invitation.
Well, welcome to the Invest in Denver podcast, Dean Valentini. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. I think the biggest thing is just I knew after doing so many YouTube videos with you, tours with you, conversations with you, and just overall hangouts, you're just going to be an excellent guest for the audience members here. It's just a no-brainer to have you invited on to the podcast. So,
Well, thanks, Ian. I appreciate that. And honestly, it's a lot of fun being here. I can look over the top of my computer and see you right in front of me, which is way better than doing the whole virtual Zoom thing. So always nice to be in the same room and be able to do that.
yeah, man, I think once we get a little bit more budget friendly, we can have, or I guess unfriendly, we can have more cameras, DSLR, the Joe Rogan experience, if you will. But nonetheless, man, for the people that are not initiated with you, I know you for the past year-ish, give or take, but for those that are unaware of what your beginnings were, your humble beginnings going to becoming a real estate investor and in the Air Force too. So we'll expand on that. But nonetheless, what's your story, man?
Yeah. Quick version. Grew up in upstate New York. Went to school in Rhode Island. Joined the Air Force after that, and have been kind of roaming around the country for the past 10 or so years. Doing that, got out to Denver like you about 2 years ago now. And that's about the time I started getting into the, maybe a little bit after I got here, but after I started getting into the actual real estate agent side of things. Picked up a few house hacks along the way. So starting back around 2017 is when I first got into investing. And then after that, after a couple of house hacks, I partnered with a buddy of mine in the Air Force, and we started picking up some small multifamily properties up in Dayton, Ohio as well. So kind of a pretty diverse portfolio. We have some small multifamily. Most of those are long-term rentals. I have a few house hacks, Florida here. Some of those are long-term. Some of those are short-term. Hopefully we'll be starting a medium-term as well here soon in one of those. And yeah, that's looking to get into scale more into commercial, larger multifamily stuff at some point in the future. But yeah, that's kind of the goals, near-term goals.
I know we're sort of jumping ahead of the curve here, but I kind of want to stay on this tangent, or at least this track that we're on right now with the whole real estate portfolio. With getting into the commercial space, are you looking to 1031 some of your properties or just start from scratch and build capital?
Yeah, great question. We've talked about that. I mean, our mentality getting in was buy and hold things forever. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, and we're not opposed to selling or 1031ing necessarily. But we'd really like to kind of have our cake and eat it too, as it were, and be able to keep those and hold on to those like we originally planned, especially since they're performing very well for us. So, we don't really want to let them go if we can essentially, I won't say start from scratch, but, without dipping into those, either syndicate or just partner on some larger deals and go that way, as opposed to having to cash out of the existing stuff.
Nice. Let's put a pause on the real estate portfolio because there's a whole bunch more to you, Dean, that I want to know more about and other people want to know about in general. So I guess going back to you growing up in upstate New York, going to school in Rhode Island, picking up some properties in Ohio, and then I saw on your truck has a license plate of Florida. Like, what the heck? I'm sort of confused, like how this sort of all came together.
Yeah, it confuses a lot of people. So I guess the short version is active duty military, and I think like reserves and guard as well. You can have a state of residence that's different from where you're physically living. So like anywhere you're stationed along the way, you can get your state residency. So I did that in Florida, no income taxes, love it. no state income taxes, I should say, and just kept it because it's pretty military friendly state. It's pretty tax friendly state. And I still have, like I said, one of my house hacks back there, so I get some tax advantages as well for being a Florida resident on that one. A lot of states do have the kind of homestead, they call it. It varies what they call it by state, but homestead tax exemption, which is like if you are a resident, it's your home in that state. Usually a tax break of some form. So that's part of the reason I did that. And then I have my Colorado address on my Florida license, which really throws people for a loop. So.
I mean, even the people at the DMV over in Florida are like, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah, that's why I go on base, because they're used to it.
Yeah, so you are active military. Which branch?
Air Force.
And how long have you been in the Air Force?
Coming up on 10 years now.
10 years. Okay. Ever since you got out of college, or okay?
Yeah, so I went through my undergrad, got into this program that allowed me to then commission after college. Did my master's right then, and then after I finished my master's, I went ahead and commissioned to the Air Force.
Gotcha. What made you join the Air Force rather than any other branch? I know with my dad, he was in the Navy for 25 years, recently retired not too long ago, and he's officially retired from even working his W-2. So nice job, Dad.
Yeah, congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's other people like to poo-poo on other branches, especially Navy versus Army. I love watching those games, but with the Air Force, why Air Force?
Yeah, I mean, that's standard. It's all in good fun, right? I looked actually at just about every branch except for the Army, so no offense, Army, but but the biggest part of it was being able to use my degree. So the Air Force employs a lot of engineers, and I'll come to find out they don't necessarily employ them as engineers as much as maybe I would have liked. We don't get as much into the technical side in most jobs, but it's still, as opposed to like Marines, for example, every Marine is an infantryman, rifleman. It's like, okay, that's your primary job, is to go kill shit. Whereas with the Air Force, my primary job is to go buy shit. As an acquisitions officer, engineer is primarily how they use engineers as acquisition officers. So we do other stuff too. Like in my career, I've been in test and evaluation my entire career, which is a lot of fun, and still lets me kind of use more of the technical side as we're helping the development of some of the newer technology, testing out the newer technology, making sure it works, making sure we're getting what we paid for from the contractor. Be that, new airplanes, modifications to airplanes, new sensors, new weapons, new systems, avionics, computers, all that. So, it's a lot of fun.
With the Air Force, I know you're jumping around from state to state, and you eventually landed up here in Denver, Colorado. Why here? Were you sort of forced here but then loved it? Or did you choose this place? What was your sort of, like, I guess, why this destination?
Yeah, it was a bit of a drug deal. I was kind of gunning for Denver, so it was very much intentional.
They're probably still after you then.
Yeah, they're tracking me down. They'll catch up eventually, but it's not usually. I'll say it's not a common location for my career field to get to. So it did take a little bit of horse trading and trying to work it behind outside of the normal channels, I guess. So luckily, I was able to work that, and I've been loving it ever since. So.
Okay. So with you moving to Denver, how recently has that been? Or when did you move to Denver?
Yeah, so I got here December of 2020. So yeah, coming up on 2 years now.
Okay. So with 2 years, that means you arrived here around the same time I did. I arrived in August of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. Were you before COVID or after? Or
I was during. Yeah.
And I will say, and maybe you can attest to this too, it's a little bit tough to make friends during that time.
Yeah, very true. Especially, I mean, I don't know how many people you knew when you came out here, but probably, I assume not many. So same for me, right? Like I have the folks that I work with, and I'm in actually a very small squadron compared to most Air Force units out here. So even harder, right? Like we don't have a ton of connections, even coworker side. So, and then COVID, everything being shut down doesn't help.
Yeah. So with you being in the Air Force, which base do you usually work out of?
We're attached to Buckley.
Buckley, okay. And I know you make some trips out to Colorado Springs as well. Any particular base out there, or?
No, we do some work down there on occasion, but nothing on any of their bases. They're actually all Space Force bases down there now. So
Interesting. I actually have a client who's part of the Space Force, and he was the only person that I've ever met so far that's been part of the Space Force. I was like, this is crazy that it's actually happening and not some sort of meme, you know?
yep, yeah, we were actually doing a tour of one of the Space Force units the other day, and it was a lot of fun, very interesting. They do some cool stuff. Yeah, hard not to make fun of them, especially after the Netflix show, which I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was pretty funny. So
For sure. Steve Carell, right?
yes, yeah, he's a funny dude.
Yeah.
And they must have had a really good advisor because they had a lot of like inside jokes, I'll say, with on the military side. So
Okay.
well done.
Nice. I heard they're doing a season 2.
I hope so.
Okay. Um, so it's a completely separate branch. I know we're going to the military portion of it, but nonetheless, like I'm still kind of curious on like what that all looks like. Um, but I know that the Space Force, I mean, with it being not on land, not on the sea, that it's tied to the air, possibly. Is there a lot of similarities to it, or do you see commonalities?
Yeah, I mean, they essentially just moved a lot of the mission that the Space Command was doing as a part of the Air Force into now its own. It's kind of like Marines are to Navy as Space Force is to Air Force. Like they belong to the Department of the Air Force, but they are their own branch. So kind of similar to that, where they have their own mission, their own subset of what they do and what they specialize in.
Okay. Learn something new every day. I mean, shoot, it actually ties a little bit closer to my client. So now I'm not looking as much of a noob going into the Space Force
Yeah,
conversation.
just ask him how his commute is to the International Space Station every day and see what he says. I like to joke with those guys.
Probably insane. No traffic though.
Yeah, traffic's probably great.
Well, nice, man. So when you came over to Denver, it seems like you've already had some sort of like a real estate presence in other parts of the states. But before we get into the real estate space, I know that you're pretty heavy into the Instagram stories, posts, and I love to tell my story on there, and you do as well. And along with that comes with everything's not exposed, but like everything's public. At least however much you want to put on there. So with you being heavily into the fitness game, like I'd love to talk more into that. And Denver is not a bad place to be, especially in the fitness arena. And I know you're a lifter, and it sounds like based on previous conversations and other podcasts that you used to do some competitions as well.
Yeah, when I first got started, I was really big into kind of the powerlifting side of things. Definitely tapered off a lot, especially with less time availability, getting into like I mentioned, about 1,000 different hobbies and spending a lot more time trying to build the real estate portfolio and work on the real estate agent side of things as well. Don't have the time to dedicate to really being as good at that as I would like. But yeah, I still enjoy doing it. Less on the less competitive side. But yeah, I started out powerlifting, did a handful of competitions, and just fitness in general, man. Health and fitness. It's your body's the one thing you're gonna have for the rest of your life. So take care of it.
I love that because there's so many people, or yeah, there's a lot of people out there that want to be in the place of Warren Buffett in terms of his portfolio or his liquid cash, which I don't know how much he has of, but nonetheless, he's a certified billionaire, right? The thing is that the dude's 91 or 92 years old. Would you trade places with a 92-year-old, but be a billionaire, right?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question that Caleb Williams asks a lot. So Better Wealth, I know you know him. Awesome dude, and he's all about kind of intent, which I really identify with, and living an intentional life, and kind of that just puts things in perspective, right? Would you trade being 91 years old for $91 billion? Like I wouldn't. I don't think most people would. So it really makes it, I think, crystal clear when you put it that way, when you ask people, confront them with that question, what their priorities are and what's important to them. A lot of people think it's money, and then they're like, well, can't buy back your youth. So
Enjoy it while you can, man. And with you in the powerlifting side, I know with me, I'm more of a runner. Definitely a lanky dude, and I got stilts instead of legs. And I know Denver's like awesome in terms of like hiking, running, anything cardio related. But the thing is my injury is like, well, I don't really have any certified injuries, but nonetheless, my joints, my knees, are like the first to go. I can already tell, you know? So with powerlifting, maybe is that a component as well? You want to have that longevity, or was it also just the fact that you didn't want to spend as much time into it?
Yeah, longevity is definitely an objective. That's actually why one of the reasons I just don't like running is because I think it's pretty hard on at least your lower body joints. With lifting and building those supporting muscles, especially and tendons and all that stuff, strengthening all that. I think it really lends itself well to longevity and not lower impact. Just making it so that when you get old, you don't have to rely on somebody else. You don't have to, you don't have to be bedridden or limited. I still want to be able to go do things, enjoy stuff, and be mobile when I get older. So
Staying solo, trying to be as self
independent.
That's right. That's right. So as far as like gyms go, I mean, you obviously love the gym. Which gym are you a part of and why there?
So I go on base sometimes. Bases all have gyms, or most of them. And then 24-hour fitness is kind of the other one I go to most. And that's just because we get a membership through work. So
It is no longer 24 hours, is it?
they did go back actually.
Like
At
literal
least
24 hours?
Yeah, at least in most of their locations. I made fun of them for that too during COVID. I was like, you guys have to change your name because that's false advertising at this point.
Right.
But
12-hour fitness.
yeah, they stopped for a while, but I think they're back now.
Okay. Yeah. I know depending on how busy it is, obviously they need to keep the lights on and they need to have all that maintenance and the personnel on staff. So, yeah. So with you being in the Air Force, do you foresee yourself staying with the Air Force more for 10 more years, or where do you foresee yourself?
Yeah, I'm actually looking to transition into the reserves part time sometime next year in 2023. Kind of done with the 9 to 5 grind. Not really a great fit for me, as I've learned, and it's part of. I don't know which came first, chicken or egg, but that's either what got me into real estate investing, or I realized that after I got into real estate investing. Not really sure, but either way, I'm not about it anymore, and it's just not a good fit for my kind of mindset, my lifestyle. So trying to move more to the passive income and the flexible work hours, I guess you could say, mentality. Also want to travel a lot more, so that's a big part of that, is having the flexibility to just up and leave. And hey, if I want to work from Italy, Costa Rica, wherever I'm at, if I have the type of income streams that allow me to do that, then even better.
Awesome. Albert, Al. I met him over at Copper Kettle. Did you meet him in the Air Force as well?
No, so he's former Army. He's actually an Army Special Forces dude. He got out, I want to say a couple of years ago, whatever it was, and kind of a funny story slash really good lesson in terms of networking, which I always harp on. I met him through actually one of our mutual friends, Stacy. She introduced us. She met him at a Bigger Pockets event, a rookie event, and she and I had been talking, and she's former military as well. She knew I was looking to start like a military meetup in the area, kind of, financial education and just not real estate specific. Obviously, I'm big into real estate, so that comes out a lot. We talk about that kind of stuff a lot, but it's just holistic financial literacy, financial education for military, for the troops, active, retired, and a lot of the folks that show up to the meetups actually are not affiliated with the military at all. So it's, we cover stuff that applies to everybody, but it is primarily military focused. She knew that I was trying to start that up. She met Al at that Bigger Pockets event, and then she's like, "Oh, I got to connect you two." And then we started Warfighter Wealth. So
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. So I know with Warfighter Wealth Wednesdays, so you have it every third Wednesday of the month.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, that's at Copper Kettle Brewing from 6 to 9 p.m. And I don't know if you're going to keep on this trend. I don't know how sustainable it is, but I've been getting some free beers over there, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, we're trying to pick up at least some of the tab every month. So hopefully it helps bribe / entice people a little bit, which I'm not above bribery. But again, giving back a little bit too, just to make sure folks have a good time and hopefully they get some knowledge out of it as well. But if not, at least you get some beers.
Yeah, and there's that dichotomy between meetups, especially in the real estate space or even just financial space, where you can have more of an informal meetup where, you're drinking beers, you talk about your lives, what you actually need, what you want, what you can provide to other people that are at the meetup as well. You go a different approach. You provide a lot of good education at your meetups, Warfighter Wealth Wednesdays, WWW. For some reason, I want to keep it WWF, like
I know
Warfighter,
it's
something
tempting.
in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I feel like there's something in there, man. But
Warfighter Wealth Foundation. I don't know.
but nonetheless, man, like even on your previous meetup of, talking about like how not to pay taxes legally, that having that 0%, showing some snippets of your tax return, your Schedule E, what have you, it just really puts to light what is actually able to be done, especially if you work with a proper CPA and all that good stuff. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about like WWW and maybe what's next coming up, like different topics that you're planning on talking about.
Yeah. So, like you said, kind of, we wanted to strike a balance. So I just mentioned how important networking it is. So we wanted to maintain the ability for folks to just mingle, network, meet new people, meet people who can help them and they can help in return, mutually beneficial type stuff, and just have fun, right? Hang out with some like-minded folks, and that's always a good time. But at the same time, we again talking about intentionality. We wanted to be intentional with it, and our mission really in Warfighter Wealth is to help educate folks. So we wanted to make sure there was some sort of educational component. So the structure we kind of arrived at is show up, mingle a little bit, get started with a real short, like 20 to 30 minute at most, kind of presentation that we, either we give a topic or we'll bring some folks in. Like we're hopefully gonna have Craig join us soon. Yeah, we did, like you said, how to reduce your tax bill. We're going to go through VA loans and just lending in general, loan products in general next month in September on the 21st, and have our lender partner Sterling talk about some of the caveats, how best to use them, how best to leverage them, both for just your own home buying experience and for the investing side, what you can kind of do and take advantage of there. And then after that, like I said, hopefully we'll get Craig out there. We're going to talk some crypto. At some point in the future, maybe December, maybe crypto Christmas. I don't know. We'll see. And then, yeah, other than that, I mean, like I said, we try to get a holistic, like cover all approach where we're going to take a look at just financial literacy, budgeting, credit scores, smart financial decisions, how to get your spouse on board with either just investing or, frugality, if you will, or whatever. So, I mean, really, sky's the limit, and we are very eager to take suggestions because we want to talk about what people want to hear about and what's going to help them the most. We want to provide the most value. So it does nobody any good if I'm just talking about the stuff that I find is cool if it doesn't help anybody or nobody cares. So we really want to get that feedback, that feedback loop, and see what people want to hear.
Yeah. And it's not, like you said earlier, it's not just military related. I'm finding a bunch of value and I'm not even it's just my dad that's in the military, that's about it. It's nice to know that there's something for everyone there. And especially if beer's involved, you're also just making friends at the same time. So that's really cool. Along with that, like now that I know like what your schedule is kind of like, you're a busy dude. But nonetheless, you're still committing so much to like your health, your wealth, and everything in between. And with that, like I know you're a hardcore advocate for 75 hard. So with that, man, I mean, first of all, I commend you. But for the people that are not very familiar with 75 hard, what is it?
Sure. So yeah, most people are more familiar with 75 hard, which is actually only the first phase, if you will, of the Live Hard program, which is supposed to be done every calendar year, or you have a calendar year to do it within. So 75 hard is the first 75 days, and then you go to phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Which those 3 phases after 75 hard are each 30 days. But it's the common theme between all of them are the tasks that you do that you start on during the 75 hard, the original portion of it, which are, let's see if I remember them all, but read 10 pages a day, work out twice a day for at least 45 minutes each. One of those has to be outside. Drink a gallon of water, take a progress picture, and no alcohol, no cheat meals, and stick to a diet. So I think I got all of them, but those are the main components. You do that every single day for 75 days. If you screw up any one of those at any point, you start over from day one, the following day. So Very strict, not a lot of room for interpretation. Andy Frisella, kind of the pioneer, not kind of, he is the pioneer that he goes into it on his podcast, and he has a book about it as well, and an app and all that. But it's, it's pretty straightforward. It's really, a lot of people, there's a lot of programs out there that'll tweak it, or, there's like 75 soft or medium or whatever they call it. And he has some pretty animated thoughts about that. And
I can imagine.
I tend to share, because the whole point of this is to, build mental toughness and really get yourself outside your comfort zone and push yourself, which most people rarely, if ever, do. But that's really the only way you can kind of improve and get better. So it's not like, no single aspect of it is really that difficult. It's scalable, completely scalable. If, walking every day for 45 minutes challenges you, that's a workout, right? If it doesn't, then that doesn't count, because you're not pushing yourself, you're not challenging yourself. So, but it's totally scalable. Like, you don't have to, it's not like there's anybody who can't physically do this program. It's just a mindset and dedication thing.
Yeah, and mindset and dedication. I know you're a big fan of Jocko Willink and also extreme ownership. And that's a huge component of, like, you can't blame anyone else. It's all up to you in order for you to complete whatever goals you set for yourself. And I tell that a lot to my friends and family. And my barber just, I know, kind of a weird segue, but my barber, she started her own, I guess, business, like Armani Services, hit her up. But she does an awesome job. But the thing is, she initially started like with her own chair in a separate salon, and she was sort of like, in a W-2 position, and now she's doing the solopreneur, entrepreneur situation. A little bit of a story. So she wanted to go out and give haircuts to kids, teenagers that are starting school, over in the summertime. 3 times she showed up for like 2 hours at a time. No one showed up. Absolutely no one. And the first time that she did it, I had a cut with her, and she was a little bummed out, like, going into it. I was like, that's great. Like, the fact that you're setting yourself up and building your own self-confidence, saying like, hey, I went out there, I tried, I marketed as much as I can. The fact that you're doing this for yourself is already leagues above what other people are afraid to do, So she didn't blame anyone else other than herself. She could blame, like, oh, kids don't want to get a random haircut out there. They don't want to, visit me. Like, no, like, next time, just be more prepared, or maybe send out flyers or something like that. Work with the school. Extreme ownership. Own up to whatever you're trying to do and just be that person, right? So
whatever you believe on that, like, you can say, there's a million ways to spin it. You can say, well, I don't have control over this, I don't have control over that. Whether or not you believe that, like, it's truly your fault, really, I like to be an outcome oriented person. So whether or not it's your fault, what do you do about it, right? If you don't change something, then you're going to get the same result. It's not going to improve. So, again, whether or not, like, oh, it was his fault. Okay, well, regardless, what can you change, or what can you do better next time, even if it was his or her fault, to have a better outcome? So there, a lot of people take a little bit of issue with the whole, like, extreme ownership, like, everything is on you, everything is your responsibility. So a lot of people don't necessarily agree with that fully, and myself included. I mean, I think there's caveats to everything, right? But really the takeaway from it in my mind is, okay, well, what can you do to get better and improve yourself? Because that's who you have control over, is yourself.
100%. No, I love that. I mean, the fact that you can't control anything else other than yourself is probably the biggest component of it. And a lot of people just don't realize it. It's so easy to blame other people, but it's really hard to change yourself and improve yourself. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of the Stoic mindset as well. So, and that's a large component of it, is you have control over you. So when somebody cuts you off on the highway and you get pissed off, it's not their fault that you got pissed off. It's your fault that you got pissed off. You allowed yourself to feel emotional and get angry, even though, because you don't have control over how quickly they change lanes or whether or not they use their signal, but you have control over how you react to it. So
yeah, that Stoic mindset is pretty mind blowing, and
it's powerful.
a lot of people might misconstrue it with being emotionless. What do you say to those people?
I mean, that's I think a common misconception about Stoicism is that it's lack of emotion. It's not lack. You read Marcus Aurelius or any other big kind of famous, I guess maybe pseudo famous. I don't know how famous they are, but they're not Kim Kardashian. But anyway, um, any of their kind of philosophical teachings or musings or whatever you want to call them, and they acknowledge that you need to be aware of and handle your emotions, not just shut them out completely. So I think that is a pretty common misconception that people are like, oh, stoic means lack of emotion. Whereas, again, going back to the control thing, it's more of acknowledging, accepting, and dealing with your emotions properly, as opposed to letting them control you.
Hmm. I am not there yet.
Hey, me neither. I still yell at a lot of people on the way to work. So
I will be honest with you too, Dean. I mean, especially with the idea of having people cut you off and you getting angry at them, right? A little bit of a segue. I noticed that more people drive horribly here than in California. Hot take here, in my
yeah,
opinion. But I mean, I grew up in LA, I grew up in San Diego, and I was just there a couple of weeks ago. I could totally tolerate them. Denver, for some reason, I don't know if it's because of like this melting pot of West Coast people, Illinoisans. I mean, proper wordage is annoyance, right? Illinoisans, Texans. I mean, everyone wants to come and live in Denver. And for some reason, when they're all trying to be on the same road together, there's just some sort of, I don't know, it's like kryptonite to Superman. Everyone fails to learn how to drive.
yeah.
I don't know, my opinion.
I don't disagree. I've driven in LA, California as well, and I don't know. I think a lot of people would probably say it's because all the Californians are here now, and that's what happened. But I don't know.
I would agree if I saw the results,
Yeah,
but
who
nonetheless.
knows?
But with you, man, I mean, so with 75 hard and 75 life, 75 lifestyle,
Live hard.
live hard,
Mhm.
that's it. How far are you into it?
So I finished the live hard, so the year long thing. So I did 75 hard phases 1, 2, and 3. I just finished that up. Let's see, what is it? About a month ago, kind of end of July. So I was pretty proud of that. It was very. I feel like I've always been a pretty dedicated person, but it was even so. I think it was obviously very much a challenge. I think I took a ton out of it. I mean, it's hard to describe, but I think it was still very life changing for me. Even not to toot my own horn, but like again, I feel like I'm generally, even before I even heard of 75 hard, was probably above average in terms of dedication and motivation and like stick to itiveness, if you will. So it's
Hmm.
still had an enormous impact on me.
With other people that want to do 75 hard or the 75, oh God, why do I keep forgetting it? 75 life,
Live hard.
live hard. Sorry.
You're good, man.
The life of
The live
75.
75 life hard.
um, with other people that want to do 75 hard or live hard, right? Um, Having other people in the same communal group as you and want to do the same outcome improvements on their own life and things like that. Not that many people are as dedicated as you, going solo and trying to do this stuff. Or did you have a community with it here in the Denver area?
Honestly, not really. There are definitely a lot of challenges in that regard. Especially continuing to go to social events like meetups and stuff where everybody else is drinking. It's definitely easier to just kind of sit at home by yourself, I think, and not be tempted, not put yourself in those situations. But again, that's part of the challenge. Like if you're only able to resist when there's no temptation, then are you really even able to resist? Because there's no temptation. So I think that was a good thing, both because I continued to essentially live my normal lifestyle and go to those networking events and meetups and the fun things that I enjoyed doing. Learning that you don't have to be drinking alcohol to have fun, which sounds obvious, but some people maybe realize that more than others. And it's a social thing too, right? So you're around other people drinking, everybody's having a good time. Why not? Why not have a beer? But I think it was good to again practice resisting that kind of temptation, having that revelation and seeing it firsthand, and also why sit at home and be bored when you can still go have a good time.
Yeah. And improve on yourself and be more disciplined at the same
Yeah.
time.
But to answer your question, sorry, no. There are like Facebook groups and stuff that kind of everybody doing the 75 hard or live hard or whatever will be a part of, and like share challenges, share failures, share lessons and experiences in that. I didn't really get too much into that, but I'm more of an introvert anyway. So
Yeah. So with 75 hard and live hard, I mean, you have to work out outside as well, but maybe you can consider like hitting the slopes as one of those outdoor activities, you know?
yeah, I mean,
Does that technically count?
it's I'm trying to remember the way Andy describes it, but he's like, if you have to question whether or not it counts, it doesn't count. So, if you're like, yeah, I'm getting a workout, I'm working out, I'm stressing myself, I'm challenging myself, I'm pushing myself, I'm getting better, then I would say it counts, in my opinion. If you're just going around and, well, obviously, if you're having beers, you fail. But like if you're just going down the slopes and having some chairlift beers and dicking around with your friends, then probably not a workout. I would say.
Sounds like more of a good time than something to, improve yourself on. You're not exactly living hard if you're
But I mean, you don't have to make yourself miserable, right? Like you don't have to do being uncomfortable is part of it. Like that's part of one of the biggest lessons you get out of 75 hard and live hard. But it doesn't mean making yourself miserable, right? There's a difference between getting out of your comfort zone and pushing yourself and challenging yourself than there is about just making yourself, sad and just not happy just for the sake of doing that.
Yeah, I don't think it has that sort of sustainability if you were to keep going with it, if you were just not having a good time every day that you go through the 75 days or even the year.
It would certainly be more difficult. That's for sure. Yeah.
For sure. When you, I mean, I know you mentioned earlier that you love Breck. You love the slopes. Tell us your favorite.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned it in the intro, but Wanderlust is a trail I found last year, actually during our ski retreat that me and Rocky put on, where he's my partner in 18 Alpha Investing, some of the small multifamily properties I mentioned. So we went to Breck last year for our kind of annual investing ski retreat with a bunch of folks. Craig was there. It was a really good time. And
who's Craig?
Craig Curlop. So sorry, yeah, for those who aren't familiar, he's the FI guy, the house hacking kind of pioneer. He literally wrote the book on it, and he's actually our team lead for the FI team, so our real estate agent team under EXP. But yeah, super super smart dude. He's I think very much similar mindset as well as you and I, Ian, and a lot of other folks on the team, which is why it's such a great community and a great group of folks to be a part of. Is that self-improvement, the growth mindset, the physical fitness and challenging yourself and just being better, getting better, ownership, all that stuff. Like that's all stuff that all of us I know care about from hanging out with you guys fairly often. But anyway, so yeah, he was there, a handful of other investors. And so Wanderlust, I just kind of randomly found it, but it's this really cool, I think it's a black diamond, mainly because it goes through some wooded areas, and it's kind of a choose your own adventure. So I really enjoyed it. You can go down that thing 10 times and not necessarily ever take the same path twice. So really, really cool run. I just really enjoyed it.
Are you a skier?
I do both. So I grew up snowboarding and broke a binding the first halfway through the first season I was out here in Denver, and said, yeah, I've always wanted to take up skiing or learn how to ski. So kind of just started renting some, and now I do both.
Since you do both, I'm curious, not just like your preference, but like the attitude, if you will, or the emotions, like having both shoulders face down slope versus, yeah, I'm going at it sideways, but I don't know what's going on behind me sort of thing. What's your opinion on that?
I do have a lot of people ask me, which do you like better? So I don't know. And I know that's not exactly what you asked, but I will answer it anyway. I don't have a favorite. They're different and I like them for different reasons. So I'm obviously a little bit more comfortable on a snowboard because I grew up doing it. So I've been doing a lot longer. So I can kind of mess around and have fun a little bit more with that. But skiing, definitely a different feel to it. Kind of that need for speed and that rush. Yeah, I don't know. They're different. I don't know that I'll ever stop doing one or the other.
As long as you're getting that fresh powder, I don't think you care, right?
Yeah, exactly. conditions out here are just amazing, especially compared to the East Coast. Nice icy runs all the time.
No, dude, I'm glad you're here, man, for your sake.
Yeah, no kidding.
With being part of the fight team. I mean, you're a realtor on the fight team. I'm a realtor on the fight team, and we have, or at least I have gotten like, I don't know, leagues better than what I have been before I became a fight team agent. And with the FI team, it's all about financial independence. FI team, right? Um, Frugality often comes in with the whole play of it all. I mean, in order to reach financial independence, you need to save a certain amount of money to invest more money, and it compounds on itself. 5, 10, 25 years, however long it takes, depending on your lifestyle, you'll eventually reach financial independence before that 65, maybe even 60, maybe even 40-year mark, depending on how old you are and how aggressive you save and invest. So I'm curious to hear what your sort of lifestyle is right now for your financial independence journey, if you have one. And I mean, are you financially independent right now, Dean?
Yeah, it depends on your definition, like you said. So there's a lot of different terminology and like modifiers to FI, to financial independence. So there's like lean FI, right? Which is like you said, if you're super frugal, you probably reach FI very quickly because you don't need to replace as much income to be to survive, essentially, which is what you're doing. As opposed to that's most people are like, well, if I'm going to be financially independent, I want to maintain the standard of living to which I've become accustomed, which doesn't necessarily mean like, stealing ketchup packets from McDonald's kind of stuff, which it's just what I think of when people are like, oh, lean fi, like I'm financially independent, but I eat out of the dumpster. It's like, well, okay, are you really? Or so I know that's an exaggeration. And I'm sure some people will get it mad at me for saying that, but it's all in good fun. But no, I guess I haven't modified my standard of living too much. I've always been a fairly frugal person. Like I don't really buy extravagant stuff. I mean, I would say I'm probably somewhere in the middle. Like I have I have a 2018 F-150, so it's a relatively new truck. I paid it off like the first or second year after I bought it. But it's not like I go out and buy a new car or lease a new car every year. So I don't. Before that, I had held on to my previous vehicle for quite a long time, so I try to be frugal about it. But I think I also don't punish myself or like really try to stay at a super frugal or low level of living. I also try not to let the lifestyle creep sneak in, right? Like I'm making considerably more now than I was 5 or 10 years ago, but that doesn't mean, again, I'm going to go now next year, go buy a brand new F-350 or whatever. So if I need it and it makes sense and I can afford it, and if it's in my budget, then I'll consider going out and buying it. But if it doesn't and it's just lifestyle creep sneaking in, then I'll try to resist that as much as I can. So I like to try to find a happy medium. And to your other question, I would say, I mean, my goal was to, again, go to that more flexible lifestyle, get away from the W-2. And so when I separate next year, I would consider that kind of my FI point, because really I can live off of mostly passive income at that point, for all my big expenses. And, that's kind of where my metric was, at least.
Yeah. I know with people often tie up frugality with like living a miserable lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, going back to the ketchup packet situation or like taking napkins from Chipotle, McDonald's, and things like that instead of paper towels. Yep. I mean, that does not sound fun. So like that financial independence is like living the life you want to live, or at least your basic living necessities is covered by your investments, right? Your assets, whether that's, passive income, whatever that number is. And it's easy to figure out. DM us or talk to one of us because we can figure that out together with one of you guys. So with that being said, I mean, I know that you're not just a one-dimensional guy of like only investing, only working out and things like that. Is there anything within the Denver community, maybe even like outside of the slopes too, but like within Denver that you just enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, I love obviously getting out into the outdoors, going hiking, camping. 14ers are fun, type 2 fun, I guess, whatever they say. But yeah, I enjoy all that stuff. Hanging out with my dog, going to dog parks, doing hikes with him. There's some kind of sports, intramural sports type teams that, volleyball, soccer that I play every so often around here as well. So there's a ton to do. I mean, there's just kind of find your community, and there's a lot of them. A lot of them in this area. I think there's something for everybody, right? So you have, the investing community that we're a part of. The outdoor community is really big around here. Breweries are big. If that's your type of community, then and I enjoy a good brewery. There's something for everybody pretty much. So you go on meetup.com and you'll see like 5,000 different meetup groups, and there's everything from business people, entrepreneurs, investing, sports of whatever kind, poetry, you name it. There's something out there for everybody, which I think, like you said earlier, Denver's kind of a melting pot, which I really, really like. So I try to stay versatile and get into as much of that stuff as I can.
We all like three-dimensional people here, It's kind of nice
That's
having
right.
that depth between from person to person. So
Yeah, for sure.
very cool. I know with you turned me on to a certain fitness app. And
Oh yeah. You still doing that, by the way?
I am.
Yeah.
So it's called Stepin for
Yep.
those that are are curious. It's STEPN, like
Yep.
step
That's right.
in. So yeah, Dean was introducing me to this app, and the main reason why is because I showed interest in crypto. I myself own some crypto as well, some coins, NFTs. I take that as you will, but nonetheless, like these are. It's not heavily weighted in my portfolio. I want to say 95% of my portfolio is real estate. The other 5% is like dabbling in crypto. It's 5% that I don't mind losing if it all goes to crap, So with that being said, like combining the two forces of cryptocurrency and staying active in that active lifestyle, earn money while you run, it sounded pretty sweet to me. So if you don't mind giving a quick rundown of what Stepin is, Dean, I know you're a crypto guy, so let's hear it.
Sure. Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. Actually, it's a move to earn app. So a lot of people have probably heard of like Axie Infinity, which is a play to earn game. So the more you play, the more achievements and junk you do in the game, the more of their native token that you earn. And then you can do what you want with that. Either like go spend it on other things in the game. You can, exchange it, cash it out, and turn it back into either, Bitcoin, Ethereum, a larger, kind of more common token, or cash it back out to US dollars if you want. So Stepin is the move to earn. So you have to go run around or walk around. It tracks your movement and rewards you in their native token. And then again, same thing. You can go reinvest, if you will, buy new sneakers that let you, earn more per mile, per minute, or cash it out, whatever you want to do with it. So like you said, Ian, I think the biggest reason that got me into it is I'm doing a lot of this stuff anyway. I'm going out, I'm running, walking, rucking anyway. So why not earn, money while you're doing it? But also I believe in it, right? Like if you're going to encourage people to be more active, be more fit, I'm about it. So I think that's huge. Again, I'm not above bribery. So if you're going to, even if you're going to bribe somebody to go live a more healthy, active lifestyle, then hey, whatever works, whatever helps them, help themselves, if you will.
Imagine this, Dean. You find an app that earns you money, that gets you fit, and it also is a factor in your live hard and your 75 hard.
That's it,
lifestyle,
man. That's what made me take the leap at first is, like I said, I'm outside running every day on Live Hard, and yeah, why not earn money while I'm doing it?
For sure. Last segment I want to talk about, man, is real estate. I mean, obviously, you've definitely been investing ever since a while. So with your portfolio itself, and even the one-offs of that van that you're trying to unload, which I'm still kind of interested. I don't know. I want to hear what your take is on that. And you have 2 house hacks here as well. Love to hear all of that in a quick, succinct fashion, maybe like go in chronological order and sort of how it's performing for you.
Yeah, succinct is not my strong suit, but I'll do my best. So, yeah, first house hack was out in Florida. Still have that, and doing great. I mean, it's I know you love the saying too, but time in the market beats timing the market. Man, it's amazing what a couple of years will do on a property that a lot of times when you first buy something, it maybe is just breaking even. Especially on a house hack, you might not be making any money on your first house hack. In fact, a lot of people don't. But you also have to factor in the rent offset. Like, what would I be paying in rent if I were out just renting an apartment in Denver? So that's a factor as well. But yeah, it's amazing what a couple of years difference will make. And now it's like cash flowing like a big dog. So doing really well. Then I actually took a couple of years off at that point. Um, didn't really want to invest in California, and we won't get too political, but there are some reasons for that. In hindsight, probably a mistake, honestly, especially with all the appreciation we've seen over the past couple of years. But who knows, right? Who knows what would have happened? Could have gotten into a legal dispute with a tenant and, wrecked my whole portfolio. Who knows, right? So try not to dwell on the past too much, but again, lesson learned. It probably would have been more beneficial to just bite the bullet and continue to invest regularly, kind of dollar cost average in. So took a couple years off. Then we started getting into the stuff up in Ohio, the small multifamily. So right now we have, I think, 14 units and a vacant lot up there. So I guess 15 units, if you want to call it that. Three quadplexes, a duplex, and then the vacant lot. And then I got out to Denver. Somewhere in the middle of that, I got out to Denver, got my first house hack out here, waited a year, got my second house hack out here. The first one was the one we're sitting in, actually. So getting ready to turn that one into a medium-term rental downstairs. I have long-term tenants upstairs. And then the current one I'm currently living in, second house hack in Denver, is a short-term rental, Airbnb upstairs. And then obviously I'm living down in the basement. So that's it in a nutshell.
Nice. Love to hear it, man. And for those that have been living under a rock and don't follow us because we harp on this all the time, what is a house hack?
Oh yeah, it just means you're living in a place that you're renting out at the same time. So there's a ton of different ways you can do that. Go read Craig's book. He talks about all like the different strategies. We talk about all the different strategies all the time. There's a sliding scale, a continuum of comfort versus profitability. So if you want to be super uncomfortable, and I mean, maybe some people aren't uncomfortable with this, and then good for them because they'll be making more money. But like Craig was living behind a curtain in his living room and renting out every single room in the house. He also, I think, lived in his driveway in a van at one point, in like a camper van. And rented out all the rooms. So that's going to be the most profitable. You rent out by the rooms. It's the most work. It's the most inconvenient to you, but it's going to make you the most money. The most kind of convenient and least intrusive way is to buy a true small multifamily unit. So anything up to 4 units is residential, and you can still get a primary owner-occupied loan on that, like FHA or conventional, and get that low down payment, which is kind of part of the way you get a real big advantage with house hacking. Put not a lot of money down. Say you buy a quadplex and live in one of the 4 units. It's your own unit. It's completely private. They're all completely separate. You're not sharing anything. You have separate entrances, separate appliances, separate everything. It's just like living in an apartment. It is living in an apartment. And but you still own the property. Your tenants are still paying down your mortgage. They're building equity for you, and hopefully you're not paying anything to live there. So you're also saving all that rent money that you would have been paying either to somebody else, or if you're just would have been paying it to your mortgage, if you're not turning your liability of a home that's not earning money, because that's what it is. It's a liability into an asset, because that's the definition of asset, is something that puts money back in your pocket. Whereas a house that you're not house hacking or not renting out does not do that, because it's costing you money because you have to maintain it. You're paying the mortgage down, you're paying utilities. So it's a big Robert Kiyosaki point that I like to throw at people, because it's usually a good conversation spark. Because what do you mean my house is not an asset?
For sure. A lot of people will argue for or against that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But we are definitely making this an asset as by definition. So with this place in particular, for those of you who did not pick it up, we are currently in Dean's house hack right now, his first house hack that he purchased here in the Denver area, more specifically Englewood. So as of right now, maybe throw in some specs, what you did with the property, and then ultimately, I know you mentioned a little bit, but what you plan on doing with it.
Sure. Yeah. Pretty honestly, it's not rocket surgery for all those people out there who are like, I don't know how to get started, or I can't get started. Like, again, talk to one of us, follow one of us, watch our stuff. Like, we try to break it down pretty easily for folks, and it's really not that complicated. So depending on the strategy you want to pursue, is depending on what you will be looking for. And shameless plug, like that's part of the reason we're here and we got into the agent side of things because we want to help people do this. But find an investor-friendly agent who's done this before, especially if they've house hacked before. Then they know exactly what to look for. They can talk you through all of it. But essentially, pick your strategy. So in this case, I wanted something kind of in the middle that was semi-private. So I took a home that had something that I could convert into separate entrances for the two different units fairly easily. So a lot of the floor plans in the kind of 1950s era homes, especially here in Englewood, they're not split level, but there's like a basement that's 3/4 below ground, but you still have windows and stuff. Some people have already put in egress windows, which is awesome. That's one of the things that makes it a legal bedroom if it's below grade, below street level. But that's kind of a bonus. But yeah, look for that area. And in my case, it was a door out to the backyard that just goes straight down the stairs to the basement. I added two doors, two interior doors, and now there's two separate units because you can shut those doors, add locks on them. You get the smart locks, super easy, fairly inexpensive. And then now you have a separate unit in the basement. This basement was already finished. Again, that's something to look for, be aware of. Did not have a kitchen downstairs. So the two other bigger things that I did to this property were add a kitchen downstairs and add washer dryer hookups actually upstairs because the washer dryer were downstairs. So now you have two, again, completely separate units. It's just like a duplex where you can, if you don't want to see your roommate/tenants, you don't have to. You shut off the doors. You're down here. I have my own kitchen. I have my own washer dryer, bathroom. So you basically have your own apartment.
And this is a pretty good size for a bachelor like yourself. Yeah, and you're not feeling confined at all. I mean, we're here chilling on the ping pong table/pool table. This is a pretty sweet setup, and I know with myself, I still like to live that same lack of lifestyle creep as well, and I don't need much more than, computer for work and honestly just something to pass the time, that extra living room area or whatever. So this is a pretty sweet setup, man. And with you having to developing that kitchen downstairs. A lot of people are like, yeah, I want a house hack, but I don't want to live off a microwave and a mini fridge, So what did that look like for you and how much did it cost over time?
I think everything that I did, including the doors, the kitchen, the washer dryer hookups, all that stuff. Now I did a lot of the work myself, so that saved me some money. But I think it was about 15 grand, all in, and I did hire some contractors to come in and do some of the stuff I either wasn't comfortable with or didn't have time to do. But yeah, about 15 grand, after I closed on the house and got everything ready, to get rented. So that's,
And we actually did a vlog tour of Dean's place. You should go check it out on YouTube. I'll put it in the description. But he goes through all the details from like what the upstairs looks like, what the downstairs looks like, what his living conditions are, everything in between. So, I mean, he did a lot of pretty cool additions to this place. And it's not what you expect with living in a basement. It doesn't feel like a basement,
I'm not exactly living in squalor. I'll put it that way. It's not, I'm a little picky as well. I'm not I'm not bougie by any means, but I'm also not like, I have standards, put it that way.
Yeah.
So I think I'm doing okay.
And let's hear about Hound Haven real quick.
Yeah. So that's my Airbnb, Denver Hound Haven. Very pet friendly. That was one of the intents of setting it up. When I travel, I always like to look for pet friendly Airbnbs, and sometimes they're not super common. So wanted to provide that for folks out here. So that's one of the main intents of it is to be very pet friendly. That's down the street. I picked a neighborhood that I liked and found kind of a method that I liked and worked well for me and just stuck with it. So very similar household over there, same idea. Separate entrances, living in the basement, kitchen down there, and the upstairs is the Airbnb. So.
Nice. And you're getting some gnarly numbers on that, but we won't get into it that much because we did a vlog tour on that as well. So I'll put a link to that as well, the actual listing itself and the YouTube video, just going through all the details of like Because that's a house hackable property as well, right?
Absolutely. Yep. So wanted to, yeah, we did talk through the numbers, and I'll just say that I wish I got started with short-term rentals a lot earlier than I did, because it's cleaning up. So it's doing really well.
And that's something that I'm noticing as well. Sometimes, like, there's that limiting belief of like Airbnbs not being as hands off as a long term rental.
Yep.
The thing is that once you set up the systems and you plug in the keypad and you have your cleaners, that's it. You know, maybe
Yeah.
just respond to inquiries and that's about
I
it.
have a little bit of a bone to pick with everybody who's like, "Oh, short-term rentals are so much more work." It's like they're not, especially if you do them right. Like you said, you set up the systems, you have the auto replies. I mean, yeah, I still spend, I don't know, on average, maybe a couple hours a week on it. Like, and most of that is spending 5 minutes just typing a response to a customer or to a guest who my auto message didn't cover their question. Like that's about it. So they're the two things that I would say is if you do it right, they're not that much more work, and they're that's the other thing people go back is, oh, you're going to be paying way more in expenses, right? Like, yeah, you're going to be making more, but you're also going to be paying more in expenses. My expenses on that property are lower than some of our long-term rentals proportionally. Like it, I think those are big misnomers. Obviously, there are a lot of cases where that's true, but again, if you do it well, you do it correctly. At least in my opinion, the pros far outweigh the cons. So like, yeah, it's maybe a little bit more expensive than it would be if I had it as a long-term rental, but guess what? If it's twice as expensive, I'm making 5 times as much. So for me, it's still worth it.
Yeah. And what's twice as expensive for like $100? It's only $200.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
It's all in relation and proportion. It's funny the people that say that stuff are the people that don't own Airbnbs.
A lot of times. Yeah. Yep.
For sure. Well, awesome, man. I mean, any questions for me?
Yeah. I don't know that I ever asked what brought you out to Denver.
Oh
I
yeah,
know you grew up or you came from San Diego.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was born and raised there. Me and my wife went to the same middle school and elementary school, so we met technically in second grade. We did not like each other back in elementary school, middle school, and we sort of parted ways just because she was like a friend of a friend.
Okay.
But I'm going way into the weeds here.
No,
But
I think you got a good Disney movie on your hands right there or something. That sounds very character development-y.
we have a contract with Hallmark, so
Nice.
just wait
Okay.
for the
All right.
Christmas story.
Collect those royalties.
But yeah, so she lived like 5 minutes away from me, and I had no idea. Well, kind of had an idea, but um, so we grew up there for 30 years of our life. All of our extended family, all of our cousins, aunties, uncles, whatever, are in Southern California, LA, all the way up to LA. And we noticed one day that our calendar was filled for the next 3 months with all these family activities. And it was graduations, birthdays, baby showers, what have you. And I had a lot of fun. For all my family members that are listening on to this, I had a lot of fun with you. But we needed to focus on ourselves. And the biggest thing was we wanted to go to a place that was kind of similar, but kind of not to San Diego. And my brother and my parents already lived here in Denver. So
Okay.
already having some sort of a family base here, they definitely provided a housing situation with us because they're like, yeah, we don't know where to live over in Denver. And my parents were like, just come live in the basement. I was like, the basement? You guys have basements? So that was mind blowing to me. And we just stayed with my parents for a bit and then house hacked our way to our current portfolio. So
Nice,
that's why we lived in Denver
dude.
or
That's
moved to
awesome.
there. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I'm glad that happened because yeah, it's been
Close.
great getting to know you.
Thanks, man. I
Yeah.
mean, the feeling is mutual and closer to bigger pockets too. The whole
Absolutely. Yep.
Phi community is definitely something
Oh,
to.
it's strong out here for
I
sure.
know, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the sort of like what do you call it? Closer to plutonium. You know, that radiation comes out, and you're like, whoa! For all of a sudden, I want to save all this money and invest.
Yeah.
You
No
know?
kidding. Yep. It's definitely snowball effect for sure. You
Yeah.
get around like-minded folks and people who you see and having success with it, and you're like, I can do that. So yeah. Yeah, man.
Anything else?
Yes. What is your biggest challenge right now? What is your biggest struggle? What can I help with? Like, what can I help you with?
Thanks, man. I'm glad you're thinking about that. Not that many people ask. With So what I'm struggling with is I have all these avenues for media, and I find video to be the best way to connect to people
Yeah.
as quickly as possible. And I've already, even like my friends in San Diego have seen a lot of my videos on Instagram. Both me and Dean are very heavily, uh, I guess, what do you call it? We're putting a lot of resources into Instagram and our social media pages. So definitely follow us. But
And
along with San Diego,
what's your handle? Ian dot real estate agent. Is that
yeah,
right?
Ian dot real estate
Okay.
agent.
All right.
Yes,
And
and
I'm the Resolute Realtor at the Resolute Realtor. And then Warfighter Wealth has its own. 18 Alpha Investing has its own.
even Hound
And Hound
Haven.
Haven Denver, I think, has its own.
I
So
received a DM from an
um,
Airbnb listing. I was like, "Whoa, what
yeah,
is this?"
yeah. Try to give give some walkthroughs, give some tours, and I encourage guests to post as well. Like, hey, what'd you like about it? Show us your pet in action. Some candid dog tax videos, photos, whatever. But yeah, man. I mean, I don't even like Instagram. In fact, if Facebook's listening or Meta now, whatever, screw you, Mark. Like I think just it's a tool though, right? So it's like any tool. You can be used for good or used for evil. I think mostly it's used for evil right now. It's not really a great thing for us as humans or society. And not to get too soapboxy, but I'm passionate about, like we talked about earlier, education and helping people, providing value. So that's the angle I try to approach it from, and hopefully folks are getting some of that out of it. But and I know you do the same. I know we both try to put out stuff that's going to help people grow or answer some questions or motivate or whatever. So I think in that regard, it can be used for the positive. But yeah, there's a lot of I don't really like this word, but there's a lot of toxic stuff on there as well. So
100%, man. And I guess like to full circle, if you were, I know you got a whole bunch of like new gizmos and gadgets for
yeah,
like doing your own tours and things like that. Dude, let's collab. I mean,
yeah, let's do it.
I'm very bullish on YouTube. We both know the power of it.
YouTube
And
University, baby. Yep.
that's right.
I'm on there all the time.
So, like, why not be that educator in the YouTube space? Not only be the student, but be the educator. So, I think I can't think of anything that I can have you help me on at the moment, but I think the biggest challenge is like knowing what I want and getting the resources to
Yeah.
hire out editing, hire out things like that. So I could just focus on the big picture, what the vision
Yep.
is, what this podcast is going to be like.
Highest and best use of your time. Yeah, it's a time suck doing all the editing and
$1,000 an
stuff.
hour.
But yeah, PSA to everybody out there. If this is, I think what, at least for me, what delayed my putting out content and stuff for so long, in addition to just the bad taste that I had in my mouth for a lot of the social media stuff, but is imposter syndrome, or like just the feeling like you don't have anything to add. You'd be amazed. So like PSA to everybody, if you know something, if you're good at something, you don't have to be the best at it, but if you're good at something, you're probably better than somebody else at it, which means you can probably teach somebody else how to do that better. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be, the Warren Buffetts of the world to teach somebody something about investing or about real estate or whatever else you're good at. I mean, I watch a ton of home improvement and like, handyman type stuff on there. So, and these guys, they may not be, I don't know, what's the famous flipper guy on HGTV, whatever.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the Property Brothers and everything. Yeah,
You don't have to be that guy to teach somebody how to be better at plumbing or whatever, drywall, so just get out there, just do it. Like, don't put your fears, put your ego kind of aside and just be like, okay, I'm not perfect, but I don't have to be.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about that is that when you hear stuff from like Warren Buffett or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos or whatever, they're all people that have already made it and they are way out of touch with the common person.
For sure.
Here's us literally house hacking and living with other people, and a normal everyday person can do something like this. So we're making mistakes at the same time, learning from those mistakes as soon as possible, and teaching everyone what not to do, what to do, and how to improve going forward.
Yeah, that's absolutely, that's the other side of the coin, right? You don't have to be perfect to start either. So you're going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I mean, frankly, Warren Buffett still makes mistakes. And one of them is that he hates on crypto. So just putting that out there. So he's old.
Love it. Let's end it on that, Dean. So one last time, where can people find you, reach out to you, and talk about WWW?
Yeah, at the Resolute Realtor on Instagram, at Warfighter Wealth on Instagram, Dean at thefiteam.com is probably best email to reach me at. Yeah, one of those will do the trick for sure.
Excellent. I'm Ian at thefightteam.com and Ian.realestateagent on Instagram. Toodles, guys. Love it.